an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering The Stone Sky, Broken Earth, Book 3. Chapters 3 and 4, plus Sillanagist, 5. In these chapters, Nassun is struggling to rejoin the comm in some sense, and Nassun is struggling to leave the comm and come to terms with what her actions have done to the other kids at Found Moon. It's honestly tragic. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. So, first of all, out of the gate, thank you very much to Denise for commissioning this episode. It has been a while. I think the last episode was like November, or no, it was October, I think, the end of October. So, yeah, it has been nearly 2 months, and I didn't realize, I had it in my head that I was further along into the book before this break, and it turns out, I was only 2 chapters in. I didn't go and reread all the chapters, but I did reread the end of the previous chapter, so like half of chapter 2, just to kind of refresh myself a little bit. And I have to admit that this book has become so or this series, I guess you would say, because the book has only just started, the series has become so emotional. Oh my God, I said series and Siri perked up and was like, hey, do you need my help? No, I don't. Go away, lady. It's become so emotional and so sort of draining in that sense that I admit when I see it on my schedule, a part of me is like I have to psych myself up a little bit because I never really feel ready to get into it. This is something that I really struggle with in general, is that I am a person who likes to talk about real issues and who loves real issues in my art. And yet I am also really aware of how affected I am by that, and it makes me sort of resist it. And this causes me to miss out on things that I know I would be very moved by, or that I would really love, because I'm afraid. I had that happen with, I think, what's the name of that movie that was on Netflix? How They See Us, something like this. I think was the name of and I literally saw a piece of the trailer and burst into tears, and I'll never watch the movie, and I wish that I wasn't like this. I wish I wasn't so resistant, because like I said, I feel like it's only me that it winds up hurting. I wind up missing out on a lot of amazing work, but I can't really help how strong a reaction I have. So I'm actually kind of thankful that this book is being commissioned, because I feel that if I had started this series on my own, I don't know if I would have gotten through it. And I don't mean to say that I'd put it down and just be like, this is too depressing. I feel like every time I would think I should really continue reading that, a big piece of my brain would be like, you have to wait until you're a little bit more ready. And I would do that until months had passed and wind up never getting to it, So what I'm saying is sometimes I need commissions to force me to pay attention to work that deserves attention. So let's start off with Sillanagist 5, which is really it's from Hoa's perspective. And anytime we're in Hoa's perspective, man, this is such a strange sensation, and it's written so weirdly. I really like it, but it sort of throws you off, as you're reading. It's like you can understand that you're in Hoa's perspective in an intellectual way, but it isn't until Hoa starts describing the way that things sound that you start to be like, oh yeah, Hoa's not a person though, and interpreting this is going to be kind of weird. So I'm just going to read this like, the first thing is that I think that this is a origin that he's talking about. He says, a woman stands with Gawa and one of the conductors, and I do not know her. To the eyes, she is one of them. Skin a soft all-over brown, eyes gray, black-brown hair curling in ropes, tall. There are hints of other in the breadth of her face, or perhaps viewing this memory now through the lens of millennia, I see what I want to see. What she looks like is irrelevant. To my Sisipine, her kinship to us is as obvious as Gawa's puffy white hair. She exerts a pressure upon the ambient that is a churning, impossibly heavy, irresistible force. This makes her as much one of us as if she'd been decanted from the same biomajestric mix. You look like her. No. I want you to look like her. That is unfair, even if it's true. You are like her, but in other ways than mere appearance. My apologies for reducing you in such a way. Oh, God, I love that. I love that line. Because it's not like when people are like, oh yeah, you remind me of so-and-so. It's not like, they don't intend it to be a dehumanizing thing. But depending on who they're referencing, it can feel that way a little bit. Like somebody, just being like, oh, you're just like my granddaughter or whatever. And it's just like, and reducing you in such a way because I want you to look like this person who meant a lot to me. I like that acknowledgement and self-awareness a lot. The conductor speaks as her kind do, in thin vibrations that only ripple the air and barely stir the ground. Words. I know this conductor's name word, Phelan, and I know too that she is one of the nicer ones, but this knowledge is still an indistinct, like so much about them. For a very long time, I could not tell the difference between one of their kind and another, which I find fascinating. I love that detail. Just like, you all look the same to me. This is going to seem like a weird comparison, but when I worked on the goat farm, I first started and, he had like 40 goats and they were all just goats to me. Some were brown, some were black and white, and that helped with telling who was who. Some were white, but really that was it. And then by the end of a few months there, their faces were all totally different in very distinct faces. And I immediately knew which goat was who. But just initially that didn't register with me at all. And it took me a while to really be able to tell looking at them. And I'll still have moments if somebody posts a picture of their cat on their Facebook and I'm like, oh my God, that's my cat. And then I'm like, that's not my cat. That's their cat, but it looks exactly like my cat. And I'm sure after a while, if they were like living together with me, I'd be like, they don't look anything alike. What are you talking about? But I really enjoy us being like reduced to animals in the eyes of Hoa. I must be respectful of their difference. We are the deficient ones, after all, stripped of much that would have made us human. This was necessary, and I do not mind what I am. I like being useful. But many things would be easier if I could understand our creators better. So I stare at the new woman, the us woman, and try to pay attention while the conductor introduces her. Guys, what does this fucking mean? I want to know, really want to know, if anybody's in the chat, am I alone in thinking that these stoned people were naturally occurring? The suggestion here seems to be that they are a creation of man. I wasn't ready for that revelation at all. It never even occurred to me. I thought that they were like fairies, basically. Something that sprang from the earth and were their own whole population with its own customs and essentially like more connected to nature in some way. It never even occurred to me that they were created. And it feels like they were created by the same people that created the Guardians, maybe. Or maybe not, because the Guardians seem to be like... possessed is the wrong word. Owned is the wrong word. Dominated by Father Earth? Is that an accurate enough way to say that? I just overall am taken so aback by this. I never ever thought. And, you know, it's really like kind of amazing that I never ever thought. Because what about this place feels natural? Everything about the way that things have gone down, like it should have entered my mind. How much of this story and its themes as well are just about us messing with like the natural order, but also like humanity and people's humanity. And the fact that he has been like stripped of his humanity somehow and is like aware that that has happened. I just don't know. The new woman, the conductor says, is Kalenli. That is wrong too. Her name is actually Deep Stab Breach of Clay Sweet Burst Soft Silicate Underlayer Reverberation. But I will try to remember Kalenli when I use words to speak. I love this because this comes up again later, that there is a name for orogenes that is associated with the like effect that they have on the earth around them. And I love the idea that the feel of that occurrence, like there was a meme not too long ago that was like, aren't humans weird? When we say, hey, what's your name? What we're really saying is, what noise should I make to get your attention? Which, when it's broken down like that, does feel strange, right? And so basically what's happening here is like, we're like, well, just name her a name. That's so much easier. But he is naming her after the effect she has on the earth, which is something that takes much longer to say than I'm sure it takes to feel. So to us, a name is shorter and simpler. But to him, the feeling of the effect she has on the earth is very short and simple as well, and something much more like intuitive. So why would you not name her that? Of course, you know? I just love the imagination that she has in deciding how this is going to work. And then there's this thing. When it becomes clear that the conductor has nothing more to say to me, I move behind Gewa and begin plaiting some of her thick, poofy mane of hair. The conductors seem to like it when we do this, though I don't really know why. One of them said that it was cute to see us taking care of one another, just like people. I'm not sure what cute means. Meanwhile, I listen. Okay, so it's cute when they act like people. This feels really like something. Ugh. Yeah, so Phylan is saying, it just doesn't make sense. The numbers don't lie, but Kalenli says if you'd like to register an objection, I can ask Gallet to take me off the roster. And listen to his shouting? Evil death, he'd never stop. It must be hard for him wanting the project to succeed, but also wanting you kept. Well, I'm fine with you on standby only, but then I haven't seen the simulation data. I have. Kalenli's tone is grave. The delay failure risk was small, but significant. Well, there you are. Even a small risk is too much if we can do something about it. I think they must be more anxious than they're letting on, though, to involve you. Sorry, no offense meant. Kalenli smiles. Both I and Gewa can see that it is only a surface layering, not a real expression. None taken. Well, then, I'll just withdraw to observation and let you three get to know each other. Knock when you're done. Only a surface layering, not a real expression. I love that. The door closes and I move to face Gewa, who is actually cracked geode taste of adolescent salt's fading echo. She nods minutely because I have correctly guessed that she has something important to tell me. We are always watched. A certain amount of performance is essential. Gewa says with her mouth, Coordinator Phylan told me they're making a change to our configuration. With the rest of her, she says, in atmospheric perturbations and anxious plucking of silver threads, Tetlewa has been moved to the briar patch. A change at this late date? I glance at the us woman, Kalenli, to see if she's following the whole conversation. She looks so much like one of them. All that surface coloring and those long bones that make her a head taller than both of us. Do you have something to do with the project? I ask her, while also responding to Gewa's news about Tetlewa. Tetlewa. No. My no is not denial, just a statement of fact. We can still detect Tetlewa's familiar hot-spot royal and strata uplift grind of subsidence. But something is different. He's not nearby anymore, or at least he's not anywhere that's in range of our seismic questings, and the royal and grind of him have gone nearly still. Decommissioned is the word the conductors prefer to use when one of us is removed from service. They've asked us individually to describe what we feel when the change happens because it's a disruption of our network. By unspoken agreement, each of us speaks of the sensation of loss, a pulling away, a draining, a thinning of signal strength. By unspoken agreement, none of us mentions the rest, which in any case is indescribable using conductor words. What we experience is a searing sensation and prickling all over, and the tumble-down resistance tangle of ancient pre-silangestine wire. I do not know what that means. Such as we sometimes encounter in our explorations of the Earth, gone rusted and sharp in its decay and wasted potential. Something like that. So, I'm sorry that I'm just sort of reading what's going on here, but it's extremely dense, and I feel like there's not a good way to talk about it without addressing the actual language verbatim. This is... So, the guy that they're talking about, Tetlewa, is one of them who has sort of like disappeared, and they say has gone to the briar patch, immediately followed by the thought of being decommissioned. And he says that, you know, this is the equivalent of being taken out of service. So human beings are apparently treating these stone people as if they are machines somehow, like robots almost. And I like the decommissioning is that when they are sort of pulled apart or like locked in an obelisk or like, I don't know. I am not meant to know. I don't think yet. But the whole thing is just so, it's so new. It's so full of new information. All of this like is talked about here in a way that makes me a little bit worried that I'm supposed to be putting together more than I am, which is something that happens in these books sometimes, you know. She'll just be like, as I'm sure you figured out by now. And I'm like, I haven't though. Now I feel stupid. So Conductor Gallet, the other conductors are angry about it, and someone reported... who gave the order? Conductor Gallet. The other conductors are angry about it, and someone reported it to the higher-ups, and that's why they've sent Kalenli here. It took all of us together to hold the onyx and the moonstone. They are concerned about our stability. So, to hold the onyx and the moonstone, they are concerned about our stability. Why do they need to hold it? Is the stability of these stone people dependent on obelisks? I just don't really I don't understand the relationship between the two, which came first. Obelisks appear to be man-made based on the sockets that we've seen. There's been theorizing about that. It was not really confirmed, but I kind of assumed. And as far as the stone people, I had kind of thought the stone people were the ones that created the sockets and thus created the obelisks. And now it's seeming like the stone people were created alongside the obelisks by human beings for some reason. So I just have a totally wrong idea of everything that's been happening in summary. So, this Kalenli is able to talk to the stone people in their own language, which I don't know that any origins nowadays are able to do that. And I'm wondering if that's going to be a skill that Nassun picks up or oh my God, Essun picks up. I don't know, but I really like the idea that they're able to sort of somehow communicate. It's like, oh my God, wait. Are stone people mutated origins? Oh my God, I didn't even think of that. Did they do something to them? That's so much worse. Oh no, I don't like that at all. Oh, Denise says, hi, I'm in the hospital with my stepmother. I'm so happy this is today to keep my mind off things. Oh, I'm sorry, Denise. I hope everything's okay. Also, I'll be in and out. Well, thanks for coming and for commissioning this. Man, is that why they feel like they're so alike? Because I was assuming going into this that they are feeling alike because they just are on the same wavelength in terms of their connection to Earth. But what if they're stripped of their humanity because they used to be origins and now they're turned into these stone people? Because we've seen that origins, like people, can be turned to stone depending on how the energies and the magic work on them. So have they found a way to do it so exactly that they are essentially made of stone? But I don't like this. I don't like this whole line of thinking. I'm going to shelve that and pretend that I didn't think of it. How about that? Yeah, because Kalenli says, not quite like you, but close enough. You're the finished artwork. I'm the model. Are origins created by people as well? I thought that it was like just a genetic thing. I don't know. Threads of magic in the earth heat and reverberate and add other meanings. Prototype. A control to our experiment made earlier to see how we should be done. How did I not really pick up on this the first time I read this? She has only one difference instead of the many that we possess. She has our carefully designed Sisipine. Is that enough to help us accomplish the task? Carefully designed. I am fucking freaking out, guys. Denise says, remember, this is Hoa's origin story. Think of how old he is and how long ago this might be. Well, yeah, like, I keep thinking about this as being part of the place that, was it Nassun that saw it? That was like all metal and plastic and stuff that has been abandoned. So basically, like, to before the moon disappeared. Yeah, thousands and thousands of years ago. Guys, I'm bugging out. I'm not the first that was made, just the first to survive. How many fragments have you attuned to yourself? Only one, Kalenli says, but she's still smiling. The onyx. Oh, that does matter. Gewent and I exchange a look of wonder and concern before facing her again. And the reason I'm here is because the order has been issued. Fragments are at optimum storage capacity and are ready for the generative cycle. Core Point and Zero Site go live in 28 days. We're finally starting up the plutonic engine. In tens of thousands of years after people have repeatedly forgotten what engines are and know the fragments as nothing but obelisks, there will be different names for the thing that rules our lives now. It will be called the Obelisk Gate, which is both more poetic and quaintly primitive. I like that name better. So it's ready for the regenerative cycle. what, not regenerative, just generative. Does it create, what does that mean? And then Kalenli says in her earth speak, that means I have less than a month to show you who you really are. And they talk this way because the, regular people can't hear it. But the both of them don't really respond because they don't know what that means. We tuners are not origins, you see. Originy is what the difference of us will become over generations of adaptation to a changed world. You are the shallower, more specialized, more natural distillation of our so unnatural strangeness. Only a few of you, like Alabaster, will ever come close to the power and versatility we hold, but that is because we were constructed as intentionally and artificially as the fragments you call obelisks. So that seems to say that origins are naturally occurring, and that they aren't... I don't know. I don't know. We do not resent this, for our opinions and experiences have been carefully constructed too. We do not understand what Kalenli has come to give us as a sense of peoplehood. We do not understand why we have been forbidden this self-concept before now, but we will. And then we will understand that people cannot be possessions. And because we are both, and this should not be, a new concept will take shape within us, though we have never heard the word for it because the conductors are forbidden to even mention it in our presence. Revolution. Well, we don't have much use for words anyway, but that's what it is, the beginning. You, Essun, will see the end. So dang. Like, I got that part the first time I was reading it, about the fact that basically we don't understand that we are people. We see ourselves the way you see us, which is as tools and machines, kind of, pieces of a machine. But I didn't really get the connection that is kind of being made. And like, Essun, when he says that Essun reminds him of this woman, there was a part of me initially that was like, okay, so this woman is like an origin, but really not. Like, she seems to be able to do something else. And maybe that's still true. And Essun just reminds Hoa of her because of that, like, of genuinely because of like a physical similarity and not just because of her presence being the way it is with this woman. But maybe they are the same. Like, guys, I don't know. And I don't have that much time left. I have half an hour left to get to the next two chapters. So chapter 3, you imbalanced. So we go back to Essun, and she is having a bit of a hard time. She's able to walk again, which she's sort of forced into doing. Like, the moment that she shows signs that she's able to walk, it's pretty much like immediate that Ykka takes back the stretcher that you've been carried on, because basically Ykka's like, they have better things to do than carry your ass around. If you can walk, you can walk. And sure, she can, but she's also like hours behind everybody. So she'll follow the whole trail and she'll wind up camping with everybody at the end of the day. But by the time she gets there, it's like camp has been asleep. Things are settled. Most of the food has been eaten. And it's just not awesome. Like, Essun is sticking with everybody, but she's definitely feeling like she's being made to be on the outside of it all. Tonki and Hoa lag behind with you. It's almost like the old days, except now Hoa appears as you walk, gets left behind as you keep walking, then appears again somewhere ahead of you. Most times he adopts a neutral posture, but occasionally he's doing something ridiculous, like the time you find him in a running pose. Apparently Stone Eaters get bored too. Jarka stays with Tonki, so that's 4 of you. 5. Lerna lingers to walk with you too, angry at what he perceives as the mistreatment of one of his patients. He didn't think a recently comatose woman should be made to walk at all, let alone left to fall behind. Tonki, on the other hand, is angry at Essun for being so unreasonable. He thinks that Essun should be made to walk. He thinks that Essun should be made to walk. He thinks that Essun should be made to walk. He thinks that Essun should be made to walk. He thinks that Essun should be made to walk. He thinks that Essun should be made to walk. He thinks that Essun should be made to walk. He thinks that Essun should be made to walk. He thinks that Essun should be made to walk. He thinks that Essun should be made to walk. He thinks that Essun should be made to walk. He thinks that Essun should be made to walk. He thinks that Essun should be made to walk. He thinks that Essun should be made to walk. He thinks that Essun should be made to walk. He thinks that Essun should be made to walk. He thinks that Essun should be made to walk. He thinks that Essun should be made to walk. He thinks that Essun should be m You try to tell him not to stick with you, not to draw Kostrima's wrath upon himself, but he snorts and says that if Kostrima really wants to antagonize the only person in the comm who's formally trained to do surgery, they don't deserve to keep him. Which is a very good point. You shut up. So eventually we get to the point, which is Essun being like, Ykka hates me. And Tonki is like, she doesn't hate you. I know what that looks like. She's scared, and she's really mad because you've put people in danger, but she doesn't hate you. And Essun tries to be like, I saved people from danger. And Tonki is like, well, I mean, yeah, but you also delivered them into something really fucking terrible. And Essun's getting defensive at this point, like, okay, how was I supposed to save them without this happening? Like, you know, this is, I did the best I knew how to do. And Tonki is like, yeah, and I think she knows that, which is why it wasn't hate. You didn't just like fuck it up on purpose. But the whole thing with Kostrima was that it was an experiment to see if she could make people who were stills and orogenes live together and make that work. And she started to. It seemed like it was working. But if it had just been you know full well it wouldn't have worked. Kostrima worked because of Ykka, because they know she'll die to keep this comm going. Help Kostrima and Ykka will be on your side again. And at this point we find out that like we've been walking in the wrong direction from where Nassun is meant to be. So Essun is getting more and more twitchy about this and doesn't like that she's walking away from her daughter. And Tonki has to be like, girl, it has been weeks since that all happened. The likelihood that Nassun, even if you like teleported from here, this moment, right now, to where she was, bet she's not even there anymore. So I wouldn't really stress about going in the wrong direction because I don't think that you were going to catch up with her anyway. And Essun sort of realizes that Tonki is probably right about this. And at this point, she's like, you know, she says basically that she wants to head out on her own in that direction anyway. And Tonki tells her that she'll come with her. It's just like, well, I guess I'll get some supplies. And it's an interesting moment where Essun is like grateful to her, but recognizes that this isn't exactly loyalty. It's just like Tonki is much more interested in what's going on with Essun. So she's going to stick with her in a scientific sort of way rather than in an affection sort of way. And let's see. Oh, here's the thing I want you to think about. What was Nassun doing when you found her? And you flinch. Because, damn it, Tonki has once again said aloud a thing that you would have preferred to leave unsaid and unconsidered. And because you remember that moment with the power of the gate sluicing through you, when you reached and touched and felt a familiar resonance touch back. A resonance backed and amplified by something blue and deep and strangely resistant to the gate's linkage. The gate told you, somehow, that it was the sapphire. What is your 10-year-old daughter doing playing with an obelisk? How is your 10-year-old daughter alive after playing with an obelisk? You think about that momentary contact and how it felt. Familiar vibration taste of an orogeny which you've been quelling since before she was born and training since she was 2. But so much sharper and more intense now. You weren't trying to take the sapphire from Nassun, but the gate was, following instructions that long-dead builders somehow wrote into the layered lattices of the onyx. Nassun kept the sapphire, though. She actually fought off the obelisk gate. What has your little girl been doing this long, dark year to develop such a skill? You don't know what her situation is. You don't know what kind of people she's living with. You said she's in the Antarctic somewhere near the eastern coast. That part of the world shouldn't be feeling the season much yet. So what are you going to do then? Snatch her out of a comm where she's safe and has enough to eat and can still see the sky? And drag her north to a comm sitting on the rifting where the shapes will be constant and the next gas vent might kill everyone? Do you want to help her or just have her with you again? Those two things aren't the same. And Essun gets really defensive and angry here about Jija. And, she's with Jija and Jija killed my son. And Tanki is like, yeah, and he hasn't killed your daughter yet. It's been a minute. If he were gonna, I bet he probably would have. There's just things that you really need to think about. And I like this. I like Tanki just getting kind of real with her for a minute and being like, first of all, you have to look at what's happening. And second of all, you have to think about all the, you have an idea of what's going on based on something that happened a year ago at this point. Not really going to be accurate anymore. So finally, they have been walking along. I didn't realize, I'd like to mention again, how far away Renanis is. I thought it was way closer than it turns out to be. But they've been walking for a good week and change here, 2 weeks maybe. And they're still they have to cross this desert to actually get to it. And the way that they talked about Renanis being the nearest comm, I figured it was a few miles. I didn't think it was anything like this. So they come across this stone forest, and it's been formed apparently by water running through things. It's like a Badlands sort of. And it says the road runs straight through, which is bullshit. That is to say, no one in their right mind would have built a road through a place like this. If a Quartant governor had proposed using people's taxes on this dangerous bit of bandit bait, that governor would have been replaced in the next election or shanked in the night. So that's your first clue. Something's off about the place. The second is that there's not much vegetation in the forest, not much anywhere this far into the season, but also no sign that there was ever any vegetation here in the first place, which means the stone forest is recent. So recent that there's been no time for wind or rain to erode the stone and permit plant growth. So recent that it didn't exist before the season. Clue number 3 is what your Sesapine tell you. Most stone forests are limestone, made by water erosion over hundreds of millions of years. This one is obsidian, volcanic glass. Its jagged spikes aren't straight up and down, but more inwardly curved. There are even a few unbroken arcs stretching over the road. Impossible to see up close, but you can sense the overall pattern. The whole forest is a blossom of lava, solidified mid-blast. Not a line of the road has been knocked out of place by the tectonic explosion around it. Beautiful work, really. What on earth does this mean? Is this a trap created by an origin? Because the beautiful work implies that to me. I don't know how this, a blossom of lava solidified why? I am dying to, this sounds so cool. I wish that I could see this better in my head. So Essun goes to find Ykka, and the person that Ykka is arguing with when Essun arrives gives Essun a friendly look, which makes her feel oh, I guess everybody doesn't hate me. But Ykka turns to Essun, and the first words out of her mouth are, I don't want an argument right now. To which Essun is well, good, because I think that what you're choosing to do is a really smart idea, camping here. And finally, they have it out. And she, because Essun says something about how, first, whoever made this forest, if they're still alive, has the skill to precision ice half the comm in seconds with little warning. If you're determined to go through, we're going to have to set up a watch/chore rotation. The origins with better control, I mean, when I say we. You need to keep us all awake tonight, because if any of us are asleep and the attack comes, we'll react instinctively. So she agrees to this, and then She says, we'll split watches then. We'll have to be carried on the wagons tomorrow when we're too sleepy and useless to walk on our own. Right, and not me. I don't know what I'm capable of now after what I did back in Kostrima Under. I'm different. And Ykka says, yeah, I guess you would be. Seems like you can cess all right, though. So, at this point, can I have a weapon at least? No. What am I supposed to do then? Yell really loud? Are you seriously going to put the comm at risk because of your grudge against me? For Russ' sake. Unbelievable. You think I'm pissed about the geode, don't you? What, you aren't? Walk with me. Your nose wrinkles as you pass the hastily dug roadside ditch that is currently occupied by 6 or 7 people. You're thinking you might need to take a turn in the ditch yourself when Ykka surprises you out of the scintillating rumination. So, do you like us yet? What? You've been with Kostrima for the better part of a year now. Got any friends? You think, before you can stop yourself. No, you say. She eyes you for a moment, and guiltily you wonder if she was expecting you to name her. Then she sighs. Started rolling Lerna yet? No accounting for taste, I guess. The rust are you waiting for? The road's not getting any safer. And then she says, oh, damn it. I lost track of it because there's so much going in and out of Ykka's dialogue to then Essun thinking to herself. Oh, right. Everybody's eating and she goes and she's making a point by talking to some of the Rosohna hostages, prisoners, I guess. They call them Rennies. And one of them is named Daniel, and he is really particularly, like, antagonistic. And it's obvious that, like, everybody here is being sort of checked out to see if they can be part of this new community, this comm. And this one dude is very uninterested. Or no, Daniel is the one that's, like, pretty friendly. Fouled is the one that's no good. And he calls them mongrels. And Daniel sets the food bowl down, stares, and finally he kind of settles down and continues eating, and Daniel picks her food up again. And there is like a moment where you think it's all going to be cool, but eventually Ykka says something about how he's not very bright. He could be used for breeding, but maybe nothing else. And Faoud says, I fought for you. Daniel says, and lost. Now it's about surviving, adapting. He doesn't want to be part of this. He has loyalty to the community that he was with, but he isn't practical about surviving no matter who he's working with. He wants his team to win, not recognizing that winning just means staying alive, and whichever team you're with, it doesn't fucking matter. She's quoting Stonelore because you don't get it, snaps the other man, the one who liked the food. They're feeding us, they're letting us be useful. It's a test, you stupid shit, to see if we're willing to earn a place in this comm. This comm? Do you hear yourself? These people haven't got a chance. They should be finding somewhere to bunker down, maybe rebuild one of the comms we raised along the way. Instead, at this point, Ykka gets up, puts her hand on his head, and he basically gets the equivalent of, like, his spine separated from his brain stem and, like, severed under the skin. And just dies and like falls into a puppet with its strings cut. One of the other Renani women gasps and scoots back. The guards glance at each other uncomfortably, but they're not surprised. A word of what Ykka did to cut her spread through the comm afterwards. A Renanese man who hasn't spoken before utters a swift oath in one of the coaster Creole languages. She eyes Daniel. I'm sorry. Daniel smiles thinly. We tried, and you said it yourself. He wasn't very bright. So then we get down to the actual, conversation. You sure about this? Why wouldn't I be? Ykka shrugs. We've been short on strongbacks since Renana's attack. Now we've got 6 replacements. Replacements who'll stab us, or maybe just you in the back, first chance. If I don't see them coming and kill them first, yeah, but that would be pretty stupid of them, and I killed the stupidest one for a reason. This is what I keep trying to tell you, Essie. The world isn't friends and enemies. It's people who might help you and people who'll get in your way. Kill this lot and what do you get? Safety? Lots of ways to be safe. Yeah, there's now a bigger chance I'll get shanked in the night. More safety for the comm, though. And the stronger the comm is, the better the chance we'll all get to Renanus alive. Whoever built this is one of us with real skill. We're going to need that. You want to adopt Violet Bandit ferals? And then she recognizes that, she definitely was settled down and had a child with a violent pirate feral. And it's maybe I should take that back. I play a longer game than just making it to the next day, Essie. Maybe you ought to try it for a change. I'm not a head woman. I'm just a raga. Well, I'm both. A head woman and a raga. I choose to be both. And more. You didn't think about any of us while you were using those obelisks, did you? You thought about destroying your enemies. You thought about surviving. But you couldn't get beyond that. That's why I'm so pissed at you, Essie. Months in my comm, and still all you are is just a raga. That's interesting. I'm not totally sure I feel it. I get what she's saying, and I do feel like this is one of those things where it sort of reminds me of, God, forgive me for always making these comparisons, but when you talk about disasters and apocalypses and trying to resettle humanity, The Walking Dead is always going to come up. And this makes me think of the difference between different leaders and the way that some of them are just going to, out of the gate, attempt to murder anybody who doesn't fall into line, and some that are going to try and give people a chance. And being tactical about which of a certain group you take out in order to both make an example of them and eliminate one of the weaker links, that is important. And I feel like I get where Ykka's going with this. She's not refusing to kill any of them because she feels well, that's wrong and we don't want them to hate us. It's more of a pruning. Does that make sense? But it's interesting, and Essun is sort of thinking it over in the same way that I kind of am. And Daniel says something to her. First, Essun says, if she dies, you die. And Daniel says, that's true whether you threaten me or not. Like anybody else here would give me a chance. You really aren't very good at this, are you? Earth, fires, and rust buckets. You walk away because if Ykka already thinks less of you for destroying all threats, she's really not going to like it if you start killing people who annoy you for sheer pique. So then we get another one of these little bits that is at the end of some chapters telling us about a history of a particular outburst, or I was going to say an outburst by an origin, but it's usually a natural disaster and the origin interacting with it and the way that the people reacted. And we have this awful moment, Loris' account for the time that the shake turned the ground to liquid. One fishing village survived intact from a villager's written account. Bastard Roggett killed Lashake, then we killed him. Report filed at the Fulcrum by Imperial Origin, who later visited, notes also that an underwater oil reservoir off the coast could have been breached by the shake, but the unregistered Raga in the village prevented this, would have poisoned water and beaches for miles down the coast. So this person saved them from a slow death by poisoning, and yet they killed him and were proud of it. Like, yeah, that fucking feels on brand. Good job, you fucking morons. All right, so now chapter 4, Nassun wandering in the wilderness. And I only have 10 minutes left to talk about this. I'm going to do my best. So it's Nassun and Shafa and the other 8 children. And in summary, what happens here is that the kids run, they leave the killed guardians like in their beds in such a way as to not make it immediately obvious that they're dead, just to buy themselves a little bit of time. Because both Nassun and Shafa seem to be pretty sure that the families would try and track these kids down. So they are booking it. And everybody is pretty much, they all hate Nassun, except for this pair of twins. Because they came outside and they saw what Jija was about to do. They saw that her own father was sneaking up on her with a glass knife trying to kill her. So they're pretty much the only ones that have a lot of sympathy for her situation and what she had to do and just went through. The others, not so much. They cared about the kid that she first turned into to stone. I can't remember his name. And they also fucking miss their parents and being part of the community. Oh, the kid's name is Itz. That's right. Some have since forgiven her for that, as Shafa predicted, especially shy, scared Peak, who privately spoke to Nassun of what she did to the grandmother who stabbed her in the face so long ago. Origin children learn early what it means to regret. Which just, ugh. That doesn't mean they don't still fear Nassun, though, and fear lends a clarity that cuts right through childish rationalizations. They are not killers at heart, after all, and Nassun is. She doesn't want to be, any more than you do. So they come to a crossroads, and it turns out that Shafa is going to be sending them away on their own. And one of the kids is like, come on, you were the ones who let us follow you. You know, we know that you care about us and that you like us. What are you doing just leaving us out here? And Nassun, he says that you guys will be safer on your own than with me and Nassun. And they're like, commless? We're going to be safer? And it's like, well, unfortunately, yeah. But at the moment, it just feels like they're being literally abandoned in the wilderness, which is exactly what the fuck is happening. Why would you, if you were just going to... Stop it, says Lashar. She's gotten taller in the past year, like a good, well-bred Sanzid girl. While most of her, my grandfather was an equatorial arrogance, has faded with time, she still defaults to hauteur when she's upset about something. Have some rusting pride. We've been ashed, but we're still alive, and that's what matters. We can take shelter in those hills for the night. There isn't any shelter. We're going to starve to death, or... We won't. Deshadi, who's been looking at the ground, while she scuffs the still thin ash with one foot, looks up suddenly. There are places we can live. We just have to get them to open the gates. There's a tight, determined look on her face. Shafa turns a sharp gaze on Deshadi, and to her credit, she does not flinch. You mean to force your way in? That's what you want us to do, isn't it? You wouldn't be sending us away if you weren't okay with us doing what we have to. We wouldn't still be alive if you weren't okay with that. Guys. Yes, that is what I want you to do, if you need to hear it said aloud. You have a better chance in a large, thriving comm than you do on your own, so allow me to make a suggestion. Kill only one, initially. Pick someone who tries to harm you, but only one, even if more than one tries. Disable the others, but take your time killing that one person. Make it painful. Make sure your target screams. That's important. If the first one that you kill remains silent, kill another. When the killing is done, make it clear to those present that you acted only in self-defense. Then offer to work in the dead person's place or to protect the rest from danger. But they'll recognize the ultimatum. They must accept you into the comm. If they refuse, what do? She swallows. Kill them all. He smiles again for the first time since leaving Jeketi and cups the back of her head in fond approval. Shirk gasps a little, shocked out of tears. Ojin and Yegin hold each other, their expressions empty of anything but despair. Lashar's jaw has tightened, her nostrils flaring. She means to take Shafa's words to heart. Deshati does too, Nassun can tell. But it will kill something in Deshati to do so. Y'all. This hurts. Man, I hate it. I hate it so much. They're put in a position where there's not anything that can be done. Like, there's a gulf between them now. Shafa and Nassun on one side, Fan Moon's children on the other. The ways have parted. Oh, God, guys. So they separate. Nassun tries to say something about maybe and she's trying to say like maybe they'll like you or maybe you'll fit in something. And Peak says, "Shut up. I rusting hate you." I mean, Nassun knows that they feel like this, but still hearing it said like this and being one of the last things anybody says to her before they break apart, and when they head off and she's alone with Shafa, she says, "Do you think it would have been better to kill them?" And he's like, "Yeah, I do. And I think you know too." And she basically, when she hears that, she's like, "I do think that," which is why I think ending the world is the way to go. The fact that killing all of them would have been a better option than letting them try to make their way in this world. That is like a perfect example of why this is bullshit and needs to be burned to the fucking ground. So she finally tells him like she needs to go to the other side of the world, and he knows precisely where the fuck she means immediately. He says something like to core point, and she doesn't know what that means. She tries to explain to him the feeling that she got when she was up in the gate. And he says core point is the only thing on that side of the world, and draws her like a little map in the dirt. And apparently this is like the only continent geographically speaking, like, and that's on an island, I guess. But yeah, it's a weird, he doesn't sketch an island or continent to put it on, just that one lone dot. Once there were more cities on the empty face of the world, a few civilizations have built upon or under the sea over the millennia. None of those lasted long, though. All that remains is core point. How could we get there? And when she starts to question him in this way, he's being like, his brain is sort of being scrambled, and he has to really push through this to even talk to her, and says that Steel might know how to get there. And she asks a boat. He's like, that's not really gonna, like, it's too far. And let's see. Here is where he will abandon her. She feels painfully, fearfully certain. I take it then that you mean to assume control of the obelisk gate. Nassun gasps. Yes, that's why I want to go to core point. And he basically is like, oh, okay, so you want to end the world, huh? And it's kind of amazing that, like, when he comes down to this, she expects him to be like, don't do this. And he's kind of like, no, yeah. You know what? I totally support what you need to do. That makes sense to me. I kind of want to do that myself. Sure, let's do this. And there's a moment in there where he says that the earth has its own plans for human, and then he like almost faints. And it's that he needs the comfort of her presence is obvious. That the earth is angrier than ever with him, perhaps because he's giving away its secrets, is as palpable as the raw, flincing pulse of the silver along every nerve and between every cell of his body. And he really fights against it. But this is the first time I feel that we've seen it's exerting its control over him in such a distinct and palpable way. So she tells him about the moon and, you know, that what she intends to do. I wanted to live somewhere nice, live somewhere with you. I wouldn't have minded working and doing things to be a good comm member, but I can't do that. Not without having to hide what I am. I like Origin-y Shafa when I don't have to hide it. I don't think having it being a raga, I don't think being one makes me bad or strange or evil. It isn't right, Shafa. It isn't right that people want me to be bad or strange or evil, that they make me bad. I just want to be ordinary, but I'm not. And everybody, a lot of people, all hate me because I'm not ordinary. You're the only person who doesn't hate me for being what I am, and that's not right. And Nassun thinks Jija couldn't. Her gorge rises suddenly, sharply enough that she must clap a fist to her mouth for a moment and think hard of Ash and how cold her ears are. I know they can't do it. I know the Stills won't ever stop being afraid. If my father couldn't, they'll just go on being scared forever. And we'll just go on living like this forever. And it isn't right. There should be a fix. It isn't right that there's no end to it. But do you mean to impose a fix, little one? I don't know how to fix it. If you did know how, would you fix it? And all of a sudden, she remembers the moment that she has like kind of shoved out of her mind of coming home and seeing her father standing over her little brother's body. And the moments that it takes for her to register what is on the floor, that it is her little brother. And that detaching of consciousness that happens when you're looking at something that's so awful. Your whole self is just like, no, don't think so. We're not looking at this. We're not thinking about this. We're not engaging with this. No. And she says, no, I wouldn't fix it. Not even if I knew how. And all of a sudden, she just starts screaming and crying and punching and retching. I wouldn't fix it, Shafa. I wouldn't. I'm sorry. I don't want to fix it. I want to kill everybody that hates me gone. I want it all gone, Shafa. I want it to burn. I want it burned up and dead and gone. Nothing left. No more hate and no more killing. Just nothing. Rusting nothing forever. Hashtag relatable. Yeah, girl. Man, if that isn't the most fucking understandable shit. Because, yeah, you really do just get to a point where you're just like, wipe the slate. Bring a flood. Start over. We can't fix this. Fixing it wouldn't even really be fair because we're asking for people to like continue to live in a world where this had happened, you know, like, and to act as if that doesn't matter anymore somehow and just pretend. And how do you do that and be respectful of what people went through? How do you like hold that together? You know, like, I'm not mad at her. Not even a little. And as she's like losing control of herself, she suddenly realizes that like this is what her father felt when he realized that all 3 of his 4 family were origins and were lying to him. Like, this is part of the rage that she feels comes from him. She feels closer than ever to her father in this moment of utter broken rage. Yeah, this is fucking intense. And she's like, I'm sorry because I don't want to hurt you. And he's like, oh, sweetie, you know, you don't get to pick. You got to do one or the other. And it'll be fine. You are my redemption, Nassun. You are all the children I should have loved and protected, even from myself. And if it will bring you peace, then I shall be your guardian till the world burns, my little one. Ugh. I'm over time, but lastly, she has a meetup with Steele, who has likely been hanging around, waiting to be summoned. And when she's asking about, like, getting to this core point, Steele sort of is like, oh, well, I could definitely, like, take you through the earth. To which she's sort of like, yeah, I appreciate that offer, but we're definitely not doing that way. Because she knows that Steele doesn't need Shafa. He needs her. And that there's every likelihood that Steele will mysteriously let go of Shafa's hand, and Shafa will, so tragically be left behind. What a terrible accident that was. So, yeah, she's not doing that. But he does talk about a mode of transportation, a station, which I'm assuming is a subway or something like a train. And he sort of says that, like, the, obelisk, the sapphire, will be able to somehow, like, pay for the travel. Because he says that it, like, comes with a price. I don't know what this means, if that's used as, like, a power source or what. But, yeah, it's interesting. The ruin is at the exact center of the grassed forest within the inner ring. Enter the pucker just after dawn. Don't dawdle reaching the center. You won't want to still be in the forest after dusk. I thought it would be your mother. And she's like, wait, what? And he's like, yeah, I thought she would be the one to do this. I threatened her comm, and I thought they'd turn on her, and then all of this would be something that she would accept. But she's with her comm still, and traveling with them to make sure that they're safely settled before she comes here. Basically, he's like, she hasn't given up on the good of the world. And that's too bad, because I really kind of thought she'd be the one. And you have. And it's just kind of surprising to me. So, let's see. Nothing lasts forever indeed, he says. What does that mean? Only that I've underestimated you, little Nassun. I think I'd better not do so again. And then we have the last, like, fragment. Old local song about a nurse who stopped a sudden eruption and pyroclastic flow by turning it to ice. One of her patients threw himself in front of a crossbow bolt to protect her from the mob. Mob let her go. She vanished. And that is the end of that section, which is interesting because it's just been a series of terrible stories of people who have been murdered despite doing their best to help. And then we have this one where somebody sacrifices themselves on behalf of an origin, and that origin is allowed to flee. And it's meant to, I feel like, to underline the difference between how Nassun is feeling and how Essun is feeling. But, being allowed to flee after having helped a group of people isn't exactly a heartwarming story. So, yeah. Time to wrap up. Thank you guys very much for hanging out with me while I just burst into tears, as I do when I cover this book. Thank you again to Denise for commissioning this one. And, I guess I will be seeing y'all soon with a new episode. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
This is an Unspoiled Network podcast.